What happens when you take Mero, a 5x FNCS winner, and combine him with Cooper, an underrated player with less than $7,000 earned? You get the FNCS Global Champs. And to think this all happened because of one singular coin flip. But before we get into that, let's see how exactly they got here. We'll first go all the way back to the beginning of Mero's competitive Fortnite career. Like many of the best pros, his first tournament he would play in would be the World Cup. Now, he didn't see too much success in it or any other tourney until a few months later, where he would get his first earnings in the Solo Cash Cup on console. And this would be the start of something great. A few months later, he would end up winning his first tournament on PC, which was the Daily Duo Cup. Now, that wasn't insanely impressive, but in that same week, he would win the Solo Cash Cup, which definitely was. Now, so far throughout FNCS, he's performed pretty poorly, but in Chapter 2 Season 2, things were gonna change. This season, Epic decided to host the Solo FNCS Invitationals, finally a chance to show the world that he can compete at a high level. And after placing 11th and 6th in the qualifiers, he made it to his first grand finals ever. But with this being his first big tournament, he didn't place the best as expected, getting 49th. And going into next season, it was solos again for FNCS, so he hoped to continue the grand streak. But unfortunately, he would fall short, only making it to the heats. But just 1 month later, he would end up placing 6th in DreamHack Online Opens, still showing he had what it took. During this time, we were starting to head into trios for FNCS, and after struggling to find a trio, a very well-known pro at the time decided to give him a chance. And this is where one of NA's most iconic trios would be born, with the two controller demons Mero and Day mixed with the insane IGLing from Reverse 2K. Now, nobody knew how this trio was going to do since not many people heard of Day or Mero going into it, but they would change that quickly. After placing 5th, 6th, and 2nd in the qualifiers, and 4th in the heats, they were one of the scariest teams competing. But going into grands, they would just have to prove that more. And what do you know, they ended up winning, proving all the doubters wrong. They would continue their dominance into the next season, getting a 4th place. Definitely not bad, but this team only wants to win. So going into season 6, they would grind harder than everyone to make sure of it. And in the second qualifier of FNCS, they would place 1st, automatically qualifying them into the grand finals. And going into it, they were looking like the favorites to win. And after Reverse 2K made a video talking about how pretty much everyone that made the finals was awful, they needed to back up that claim. And well, they did just that, once again winning. Now, after another amazing performance, you'd think this trio would back it up once again in Season 7. But long story short, they underperformed, placing 15th. And with this poor performance, the trio would officially disband. But Mero would go on to create another iconic team with him and Booga. But since this FNCS was still trios, they needed one more. And after much debate, they decided to give Muzz, the OCE player who moved to NA, a shot. Once again, going into it, nobody knew how this team would perform since they only played one Cash Cup beforehand. However, in the first qualifier, they placed 5th, getting their spot into the finals. Yet still, nobody really knew how this team would do, so it was time to see if they could shock the world. And shock the world they did. After one of the most intense last games in an FNCS, they came out on top winning. And with this season also having the Grand Royale afterwards, they were looking like the team to take it home again, until some big changes happened. Booga ended up making the call to drop Muzz and instead pick up Dukes. And everyone was extremely surprised since they literally just won FNCS a week before. But it was Booga and Mero at the end of the day, two of the best players in the world, so they must have had their reasons. Regardless, going into the finals again, it was time to see if this last second change to the team was really worth it. And what a shocker, they ended up shutting everybody up by winning it. Now after this season, we were heading into Chapter 3 where the rest of FNCS was now going to be duos. And after playing with multiple different people during the season's Cash Cups, Booga and Mero would officially come back together once again for FNCS. And they would end up just barely qualifying to the grands after the first qualifier after getting 8th. So now at this point, we've seen them go back to back. So now it was time to see if they could do the impossible and win 3 FNCSs in a row for the first time. And they would make the impossible possible by winning once again, officially becoming the back-to-back-to-back FNCS champions. With Mero now having 5 FNCS titles under his belt, he was for sure considered one of the best players in the game. and hands down the best controller player in history. Now in Season 2, they unfortunately wouldn't continue the streak of winning, however they still got an impressive 3rd place. And in Season 3, they would end in 2nd place, just one singular point behind 1st. Now with these insane performances, they were obviously invited to play at the FNCS Invitationals, the first official LAN since the World Cup. And going into it, this duo had an insane amount of pressure on them to perform well. After all, Booga was the last person to win a LAN event, and obviously with their FNCS performances, they were looking really good. But they would end up underperforming, finishing in 36th place, very disappointing after their recent performances. And because of this, Mero's passion for the game started to diminish. However, going into a new chapter once again, he moved on and decided to part ways with Booga, and this time pick up Edgy. But this duo didn't see much luck throughout the season, not having the best placements in Cash Cups and ending in 22nd during FNCS. With these back-to-back poor performances, Mero just didn't want to play the game anymore and would officially announce that he is quitting the game, even leaving Dignitas, the org he was signed to. But then pretty much a day later he would come back still playing tournaments. It seems like all the pressure of being in the spotlight and having to perform every time really just got to him. And he just wasn't having that much fun playing the game, he just wanted to compete. But this is where that coin flip comes into play that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. One day, Cooper received a DM from Mero asking him heads or tails without any context. So Cooper responded saying tails, and then this happened. It looks like Mero, with hundreds of thousands of dollars earned off the game, was now going to play with an up-and-coming player with only $7,000 earned, and give him a chance he's never had before. Mero would later go on and say that the reason for him doing this was because he had nothing better to do after quote-unquote retiring, so he decided why not find 2 underrated players and flip a coin to choose who he was going to play with. And little would he know that this decision would change their lives forever. So now that we know how Mero got here, let's see how Cooper's career began. Now, he actually started competing before Mero, with his first tournament being the Prospect Division Cup. Even though he started at the beginning of online tournaments, he wouldn't get his first earnings until almost 3 years later, where in Chapter 2, Season 8, he would end up winning a solo Cash Cup on West. So after years of grinding, it seemed to be paying off. And from that point on, he would start to place pretty consistently in the Cash Cups, but mainly in solos. But it wouldn't be until Chapter 3 Season 3 where he would get his greatest accomplishment yet. After proving that he was a good player, a pro by the name of Nani decided to give him a chance during FNCS. And after just barely being consistent enough during the FNCS qualifiers, they ended up making the heats, where they either needed to win a game or place in the top 6 most consistent teams in order to make his first grand finals ever. And in the very first game, this is what happened. They came through with the win in the first game, and now he was ready to make his FNCS Grands debut. However, they didn't play the best, ending in 30th, which really isn't too bad since it's his first Grand Finals ever. And in Season 4, he would continue to earn here and there, but since the FNCS Invitationals was going on, this season didn't have an FNCS, so he couldn't compete. But going into Chapter 4, he would see improvement like no other. This first season, he would play with multiple different teammates before ultimately deciding to play with Seek. Now this duo was actually pretty good, but unfortunately they only managed to place 13th in the heats, missing out on Grands by just 2 placements. And considering they were contested throughout the entire FNCS, they still played very well. But it's important to note that during this time, Cooper was really starting to make a name for himself by being one of the only a few players to consistently place in every solo victory cup each week. But after a disappointing first season to start off this chapter, he was about to get blessed. Now the entire time Cooper had been competing, he lived in Texas, so he was always on pretty high ping. As I'm sure you all know, in Season 2, the servers combined on NA to create NA Central. So Cooper, who was already an amazing fighter, just went from 40 plus ping to 0. And to make things that much better, obviously Mero would end up dueling with him just a few days before FNCS. So it was now where he had no excuses and he could finally enter his prime. But he had to make a major change in order for this duo to work. If you've watched Cooper before, you'll realize he is one of the best mechanical players in the game. But since he's playing with Mero, who is already known as one of the best fraggers in the game, he decided to take on more of an IGLing role for the first time. Because of this, he would put in hours of VOD reviewing and coming up with game plans in order to show why he deserves to play with Mero. And with all this time put into grinding, it started to pay off. And in the qualifiers, they would place 7th, 32nd, and 13th, giving them enough consistency to qualify to the grand finals. But nobody really knew how this team would do. After all, Mero has said that he is barely playing the game, and this is Cooper's second grand finals ever. Obviously they were good, but are they top 5 or even top 10 good? Well, we'll just have to see.
Nice. He's on me. He's on me. He's jumping on you.
After shocking everyone, they came out in second place, earning almost $50,000, making Cooper go from $7,000 earned in over 4 years of competing to over $50,000 from just one tournament. But most importantly, they officially qualified to the FNCS Global Championships at the end of the year. Going into Season 3, Cooper would continue to grind extremely hard, but Mero would continue to not really play the game and just hop on here and there. And going into FNCS again, everybody was excited to see what they could do. But long story short, they ended up placing 9th. Still not bad though. And this now brings us to the current season with the Global Championship only being a few months away. Cooper once again was putting in the time grinding and Mero was just showing up when needed. But the reason this works for Mero is that he's just so gifted at the game that he doesn't need to play all the time in order to stay on top. So going into the LAN, not many people knew how well they were going to do this time around, since their best performance this season was only a win in the Duo Cash Cup, and their next best performance being a 21st. On top of that, they were planning on dropping at Rumble Ruins, and to put it lightly, this drop is pretty trash. But since they were uncontested, it was looking like they would at least qual to the finals. And if you're unfamiliar with how making the finals works, I'll explain it quickly. So at the LAN, 50 of the best teams who qualified from placing well in FNCS competed on day 1, where if you got top 25, you would make the main event. And on day 2, the remaining 25 teams that did not qualify would play with the other 25 teams that made it from the last chance qualifier, where they would still need to place top 25 to make it to the finals. So with Mero and Cooper qualifying from the very first FNCS, they were able to play both days if needed. But still, going into it, nobody knew what to expect. Dropping in on day 1, they ended up being uncontested, but in game 1, they got a 20th, game 2 an 18th, 3 a 39th, and 4 a 41st. But all they needed was a mediocre last game and they would make the finals. But then, a 1-kill 16th. They would end up just barely missing out on the top 25 by only 3 points. This was definitely a big blow to them since they were expecting to do way better. But they weren't out of it yet. They still had day 2 to play and it should be easier since the 25 best teams already qualified. So now that they got all their nerves out from day 1, it was time for them to show what they got.
Still has a couple of mini shield pushes he can utilize. Source, on the other hand, won't make it through. Cooper going absolutely nuclear with the back-to-backs here. Cooper just won't let it go. He's actually got it.
And right out the gate, they would start off with a 4-kill second. But in the second game, they would only end up placing 26th. Definitely a bit of a setback. However, in game 3, they would solidify the qualification with a 5-kill 11th. And in the last 2 games, they did poorly, getting 36th and 38th. But it didn't matter since in the end, they placed 17th, making it to the finals. Now, like I've said before, this team was still a huge question mark. Everyone knew they were good, but they didn't put on an impressive showing either the 2 days. And I don't need to talk about Rumble Ruins again. But dropping into the first game of the finals, nobody was prepared for how good they would play.
Game yesterday, it was stolen away by both Bryce and Chubbs going at it. I drop on the other side, but he gets taken down by the NA duo. Huge shot by Mero, out for Boyle to survive momentarily, but Cooper hot on the chase. He sacrificed himself to go for the elimination. Steady out of nowhere. Final 2 teams. Mero's trying to stay alive.
What Mero is capable of, but now it's a 1v1. Old blood versus the new, basically. Mero showing, hey, I'm the big dog of the region.
Hey, Mero running out of builds. That's his last chance. He falls all the way down. Mero goes out.
A nice little 7 kill seconds start off the tourney, not too shabby. But we saw the day prior that they started off strong, so the real question was, can they back it up in game 2?
Incredibly far. Mero, Cooper, trying to do it again here, looking to make the redemption run. They got a hurt team in front of them. Off to the side they go. These are points that need to be earned. Cooper is earning his strength, but Mero is here to back him up. He holds it down. The siphon comes in now. This is it.
His name, Cheatin, trying to join Polo Sphinx as a team with multiple wins this weekend. Back-to-back shots. He's already been able to get one at last game, but he has no materials. Zone is taking him out until the final shot is in.
Another second place put them 40 points ahead of second, who was Pixie and Cheatin. And going into this third game, it would pretty much be the solidifier on how this tournament would finish. If Cooper and Mero had a bad game, they would give many other teams a really good chance to win as well. So with everything on the line, we head into game 3 to see what they can do.
Right now, just a couple builds here. They're going to have to force the agenda, force the fight. He goes for it, puts it all on the line, doesn't quite find it, and Mero's here to back him up because Pink was looking at him from before, and they finished him just like that. High ground, unsure. Cooper by himself now. Is the crowd this big? With this much on the line, and so is Cooper.
No way.
And he is still going.
5 eliminations, more math than they know what to do with.
Oh my God.
Another elimination almost grabbed up by Cooper.
After a 5 kill 5th, they were looking unstoppable. But they're not the only players on the top of the leaderboard. After getting back-to-back wins, Pixie and Cheatin are still in second, but only 6 points away from first. So now it was a 2-horse race, since the closest team in third was 80 points away. One thing's for sure though, game 4 was gonna be intense.
Against top 5s, Sasuke. But hold up.
A little bit longer than he was intending, but Mero dropping down to low ground. Mero and Cooper, they're still managing to stay together, at least for the time being. Cooper, though, completely out of the team. But that's not the...
A 5 kill 12th, not the best game, but the real question was, how did second do? And what's the leaderboard looking like? They were still in first, pulling ahead even further, but this was still anyone's tournament. So going into the second to last game, they just had to hold on to that first place.
It's home territory, this is hometown. They're looking to do just that. But everyone's hurt here, but Mero and Cooper finished the job.
To pause or relax. So many
And
players
Cooper
pushed in.
turns around, burns down Fico, the senior of his run. He's still on fire here. Cooper now by himself, trapped in the storm, and he falls inside the top 15.
They would end up getting a 5 kill 14th. But everyone else had a poor performance, so they actually ended up pulling ahead. So now they were 80 points ahead of second place. So going into the last game, everyone was thinking that surely they won it, right? But there was just one thing that could happen that would ruin their chance at winning. If they ended up dying early without many points, second or even third with a good kill win could take over and win. So it was time to see if the odds were in their favor. We switch over to Pixie and Cheatin, who are in second. They would end up getting extremely shambles, so if they wanted to pull ahead, they needed to get a refresh in order to stay in it. But after Cheatin went down, things were not looking good. So it was up to Pixie to pull off the impossible clutch, but then...
In sight, he's just got to keep going. Vino shuts him down, and down goes Pixie and Cheatin before they can earn any points.
Second place was officially out. With Cooper and Mero still alive, it looked like they were on their victory lap until...
To grow the count, 324 points currently on the leaderboard. And Cooper, despite having been knocked...
Shot from the side here, he has no more builds. He needs this refresh. If not, it's over, and down he goes.
They went down in 23rd. But still, they were ahead by so much, surely nobody could catch up, right? Well, we still have Kami and Seti. Yes, they were down by over 100 points, but if they pull off the win with a good amount of kills, they could pull through. So now it was time to see if they could pull off the biggest upset in history.
Copenhagen, hold your breath. Let's see how far Kami and Seti can go. Will you put your money on it? It's the question.
He's gonna rocket ram forward. Seti soon to follow. Seti, though, he's lost his shields entirely as he drops back down with the rest of the lobby.
Here we go, Kami on the run right now, trying to find some eliminations. Moneymaker might just be the next one, but another team's next door. Kami has a decision to make, misses out on the opportunity to find elimination.
Kami, meanwhile, Seti, meanwhile, they're still keeping the charge going.
How are they still alive right now? Truly fighting for it. Kami needs a second here. He's got to drink the slurp juice. Have to continue to fight back. It's all or nothing now. You need everyone here. They have to finish things up. They have to take out the lobby to earn as much as possible here. But what a run it has been for Kami and Seti. Rapid and Batman Boogar in front of them.
In the mid-ground. And it's going to be Flixie first. Oh! Nearly putting an end to the Polish run.
Appreciation and support for Kami and Seti, who are fighting for it and keeping it interesting. Oh my gosh. 4 HP. Down goes Ticho. Kami will not give this up without a fight. Trulex now coming in. He's hurt, but there are two. Kami goes in. No shot hit. Trulex finds it. Siphon comes through. It's now a one-on-one and Trulex.
But without the win and not nearly enough kills, Cooper and Mero were officially the winners of the FNCS Global Championship, making Mero officially tied with the most FNCS wins in the world. And Cooper having one of the most insane years ever, going from less than $10,000 earned to over 560 at the end of the year. This duo has shown that with hard work and dedication and just playing occasionally if you're Mero, that anything is possible. Thanks for watching. If you want a possible shout out in the next video, leave a like and subscribe and comment down when done. Peace out.